Hey there, this is Natalie, and to complete my trio of reviews of nice, new, wholesome anime for the fall 2020 season, following on from my reviews of Kuma 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 Bear and Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle, this is my first impressions of Majou no Tabitabi, also known as The Journey of Elaina. I've also heard it referred to by a couple of other names, Wandering Witch and Ashen Witch. But whatever you want to call it, it is the story of a young witch named Elena, who, from what I can gather, is going to spend the season going around having a different adventure every week, making this show kind of like the diaries of her witchcraft career, I suppose. It's kind of strange for me to be talking about a witch who isn't quite as crazy as the ReZero witches, and I've put on a special witchy looking dress in Elena's honour. So, on with the review. This show starts off with what I guess is kind of the framing device for the format of the show, showing a very young Elena reading her favourite book, which is the diaries of a very famous travelling witch named Nike. She tells her parents she wants to be just like her idol and asks them if she can go off travelling too. To which they reply that yes, she can if she works very, very hard and qualifies as a witch. Watching this scene, I actually wasn't sure if this was the kind of fantasy world where people didn't know witches existed, and this was kind of her parents being like, yeah, of course, once you qualify as a fairy, you can go off and do anything, knowing that witches aren't real. But no, her parents weren't humouring her. She qualifies as a witch at the age of 14, having taken them at their word and studying like an absolute beast, just for the opportunity to live out this lifelong dream. Unfortunately for Elena, where she did qualify so young, the other witches in her town seem very kind of suspicious of her and don't want to take her on as an apprentice. Apparently she needs to do an apprenticeship to fully become a witch and be able to go off and do witchy things on her own. But just when she's feeling most dejected about the lack of a new teacher, she overhears her father talking about how a shady witch has appeared in the forest, a witch who calls herself the Stardust Witch. Naturally, Elena takes the bait and goes straight to the forest to find this person. The Stardust Witch is a woman called Fran, who at first glance Elena thinks to be basically as mad as a badger. She's kind of dancing around, singing, surrounded by butterflies. I don't know what the deal is with butterflies and witches at the moment. Is that like the new hotness or something? But anyway, Fran does take Elena on as her apprentice. However, for the first month that she's with her, she basically treats her more like, well, her bitch. She makes her prepare all her meals, do all the cleaning, and doesn't teach her anything at all. At the point where Elena's frustrations with her sensei reach their peak, Fran challenges her to a test. This is an intense battle which Elena thinks she has absolutely no way of winning, and she's not sure if Fran is actually crazy and really wants to kill her. To be honest, I wasn't sure either, but then I remembered that this wasn't supposed to be one of this season's darker anime, and to stop expecting bad things to always happen. Though I still maintain that Warlords of Sigifrida is gonna get dark. Defeated by Fran, Elena bursts into tears, and her teacher gives her a big hug, which Elena really doesn't know what to make of. But it's at this point that Fran reveals she was actually hired by Elena's parents, who were afraid that due to the success she'd had at a young age, she would never really learn how to deal with adversity. Fran had been paid money to basically create setbacks that Elena would have to deal with. But having seen how competent and talented she was, as well as how diligent, she realised that the only real lesson she could teach her was to say no to people and stand up for herself, which is why she'd been treating Elena like a doormat and waiting to see the point where she would crack and confront her about this. With all of that out in the open, Fran agrees to properly teach Elena, and the story moves forward to a year later when Elena's completed her training, and Fran admits that there's nothing left that she can teach her. It's at this point that Elena believes she's ready to go off on her journey, and so she says farewell to her parents. Her father quite hilariously starts to cry about his only child going off into the world by herself, and her mother gives her a diary of her own, so that she can write all of the stories of her adventures, just like the witch Nike that she was shown to idolise at the beginning of the story. And that's basically the episode. It was an origin story for a character that, from what I can gather, we're going to see in different phases of her life during each episode, going to different places, helping different people, and probably solving Village of the Week type mysteries or something. From what I've heard, there isn't really an overarching plot to this show. It's going to be very much one-off stories that all take place at different points in the main character's life. Now, with this kind of travel type story where there are going to be different secondary characters each week, it's quite important that the main character is good and compelling. And I do think Elena was set up as a likeable and quite interesting character. She's hardworking and optimistic, she's talented, but she also seems very aware of her youth and inexperience. And so I guess a lot of the stories are going to be about her maturing and learning things as she goes around doing witch stuff. She seems like a nice character to watch going around on her adventures, and I think this is going to be kind of a chilled, pleasant show that you can just tune into each week for a new story. The animation is really nice, everything looks pretty and kind of goes with the feel of the whole thing. It's got this real high quality feel that I think really comes through. If there was a word to describe everything about the first episode, I would say it's competent. Everything was just well done, from the writing through to the presentation. And while I wasn't really sold on the format of the show before I started watching it, being someone that tends to like a sort of deeper story and things, so I can analyse it to death and make theories about it, I am now pretty much sold on this show. I'm definitely going to keep watching it, and I think it's going to be one that I actually look forward to each week, as something nice and chilled with a likeable character to spend time with. But what about you guys? Have you watched this show yet? Are you planning to watch it? If you have watched it and enjoyed it, how would you rate it compared to some of the other new shows that are starting this fall? I'm always interested to hear from you, so please let me know in the comments. As always, please like and subscribe if you are enjoying these quick reviews of new fall anime episodes. And I will also be getting back to reading the ReZero web novel audiobook as soon as my throat stops feeling kinda ropey. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again very soon.